Hi everyone, happy Thursday. It's almost the end of the week. We've almost made it. Um, I am really excited. I talked quite a bit about remote work. And one of the reasons I am so excited about that is quite simply that I think a revolution is brewing, and I think a revolution is happening in, in the workplace. And that is simply that if you are in the service or information sector, there is almost no need for you to go to the office. And there is so many good things. I just watched like 3 TED Talks on this, and I am not one for sitting still and watching a lot of videos because I have so much to do, but I actually sat and watched these through. One of them, the gentleman was talking about, and I'm going to have to reference these talks in the comments. They are on a playlist on my channel on YouTube, Bookkeeping Made Simple. I do have a playlist that discusses the successes of homework or remote work. Now, my preference is to work right here where I sit every day to talk to you because I have a 24-inch monitor right in front of me. I have a 22-inch monitor just to the side. I have my webcam. I have everything I need. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I have, the refrigerator's right back there. That's maybe not so wonderful. But I have... it's just great to be able to do things like move the laundry through. It's such a simple, ridiculously easy thing, but I don't have to worry about getting up and fighting traffic. I don't have to worry about clocking in at a specific time. I don't have to worry necessarily commuting into Slack or WhatsApp or text message or Skype or, there's just so many different tools. If I need to speak to a colleague face-to-face, then I have the option of maybe, stopping by the office. If there's a meeting that I actually physically need to be at, which I have found very few of, I could go to the office. I have the option. And I think it's important that if you're not one that wants to work remotely, if your home is chaos, and some of us have that, then you have the option. If you prefer to have a 2-minute commute down the stairs to the computer, then you can have that option too. There's a lot of benefits to that, and there's a lot of benefits not just for the worker, but for the employers and business owners as well. For one thing, if your people are working from home and they're using their own computers, they're using their own, I have 2 laser printers, a flatbed all-in-one inkjet printer that I use for color till I can find a color laser printer. Then I'm getting rid of them all. I have the monitors set up the way I want them, although I would love to have another one over here, but that's going to be a while before that happens. There's only so much multitasking a person can do, and actually you can't multitask. Did you know that? Dave Crenshaw is a friend of mine, and he has a couple of books on how you cannot multitask. Your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. Sorry, I am sharing this to my personal timeline on Facebook. But I have 2 monitors so that I can have the things that I'm looking at, PDF files, bank statements, anything that I need to look at is over to the left, and then anything that I'm actually working on is right in front of me. So I kind of make the main thing, but I still have the information that I need right there, pretty close. It's really handy when I'm reconciling bank statements, because I can have the bank statements up on one monitor and the software at QuickBooks up on the other one. Excuse me. So we're starting to see a real revolution of people who, if they don't have to be in the office, they don't want to be in the office. Now, what does that mean for society? I don't usually think about what it means for society because I'm much more concerned about what it means for me. What it means for me is less wear and tear on my car. It means that my bills for fuel go down, It means that when I'm out running around, it's things that I actually need to be doing. It means that I'm kind of in my comfort zone here. And if I do feel like I just need to be around people, I can pack up my laptop and go to Starbucks, or I can go to the office, or I can get around people, or I can plan a meeting. And speaking of planning meetings, by the way, I had one this morning that just kind of annoyed me because he texted me 15 minutes for the meeting. 15 minutes before a 9:30 meeting, I'm not looking at my phone. And that's just me. I am usually busy trying to get myself, my kids, everybody out of the house, if to where they need to be. I had gotten up early. I was still trying to get the morning caffeinated going. They say some people rise and shine. I just kind of caffeinate and hope for the best. And I was already at the shop where we were supposed to meet at Starbucks when he goes, well, are we having this meeting or not? I was like, well, if you wanted to confirm that with me, it kind of needed to be done an hour prior. And then, by then I was like, well, I've been here 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and I had my 16-year-old I had to take to work, and because I had other errands to run, I couldn't let her have the car. And I was like, this is not the time to ask. Because if I tell you that I will be at a meeting, if I schedule a meeting, unless I tell you that I'm changing it, I'll be there. If I don't show up, it's something dramatic. It's not just I just didn't feel like showing up. I'm usually there, and I'm one of those people that believes that if you are on time, you're actually late, and if you're 10 minutes early, you're on time. So I don't do well with lack of punctuality, and I don't do well with someone who wants to confirm 10 or 15 minutes for the meeting's even supposed to start. It doesn't work very well for me. I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? It sends a message that my time's not important, and his time was much more important, and I don't do that. So that's just kind of my little rant of the day. So what benefit does it have for me? Well, I don't have to worry about it. For me personally, my food costs go down because I'm eating right here at my house. I'm eating last night's leftovers of a very delicious chicken tortilla soup. I don't have to worry about eating out. I don't have to worry about packing a lunch or thinking ahead. I don't have to worry about expensive beverages elsewhere. I have my beverages here. I don't have to worry about special clothes. I'm just in jeans and a t-shirt, and it's a little bit fancy t-shirt, and it's not even mine, it's my daughter's, but I don't have to worry about dressing up if I don't want to. I do prefer not to work in my pajamas. I do prefer not to work in bed, because I find that if I spend all day in bed working, a lot of work doesn't get done. I also find that if I'm in my pajamas, I'm not in work mode. Now, I did just watch, and one of the videos that I watched, the guy was talking about, and again, I'll link to them in the comments. He mentioned that he and his wife had decided to move to the Tri-City area in Washington State, Eastern Washington, I think. And he was actually, his job was headquartered in Oklahoma. And he was working from home, working remotely, kind of setting his own hours, actually accomplishing more work. That's the other thing, and I'm going to come back to this. Actually getting more done in less time. And he goes ahead and he makes this move, and his company comes back and says, we are terminating any remote work, and we need you to either come back to Oklahoma or move to San Francisco. And he doesn't like San Francisco. And I don't blame him. And I thought, can you imagine the commute? If you're from San Francisco, tell me about your commute, because the commute here in Salt Lake City is bad enough. I'm thankful every day about rush hour that I don't have to be in it unless I'm doing something personal for myself. My esthetician's up in Salt Lake, so I will brave rush hour traffic for her. And it doesn't really necessarily bother me to be in rush hour traffic, but I'm thankful that I don't have to do it every day, because most days I work at home. Some other benefits to me, I actually get more work done in less time. Now, if you my first real attempt at entrepreneurship was a virtual assistant. And if you don't know what that is, basically I was a remote secretary. I would put together spreadsheets and type up, helped write a book, all kinds of fun stuff. But that's what I was. I was kind of a Jane of all trades, and whatever needed to be done got done. And I kind of went into bookkeeping as an outgrowth of that because that's something I can quantify. And I didn't like the idea of getting paid by the hour, by the way, and this is why. When I worked in corporate America, I had a great job. My first job that was actually really out of the food service, my first series of jobs when my kids were really little, when I was young, was McDonald's and KFC and Papa John's and Domino's and stuff like that. And I was working at Papa John's, and I got a call from a temp agency to place me at a hospital in Paducah, Kentucky, at Western Baptist Hospital. And so I went and I got hired. It was my first office job. I was so excited. I didn't know people got those, without a degree and maybe an advanced degree or postgraduate degree. I just didn't know. So I started working as a patient accounts clerk, which is my job title. Basically what I did was bill insurance companies, specifically Medicare. And when Medicare would pay, there would still be a balance left because at the time it was an 80-20. Medicare would cover 80% and the patient would have to cover 20%. So then I would have to go and look and see if there was a secondary insurance on file. A lot of people who are on Medicare, at least then, after the Affordable Care Act, I have no idea how this has changed anything, but they would have a second insurance that would cover the co-pays. So I would basically just make sure that everything was getting posted correctly, that if there was a balance left, that I was calling the patient or the patient's family. And since I was working with the elderly, that led to some confusing discussions. I perfected my customer service at that job. But that was my very first job, and I thought that I was really going to be nose to the grindstone. I would actually bring in a Walkman, that's how long ago it was, and listen to music while I was working so that I didn't have to, we were in a bullpen, and there were about 20 women in the office, all women. I never want to work with all women again. I like working with men. They are not as emotional once a month. I really think that the best workforce has a pretty even mix, and if not, then I would rather work with all men. I don't like working with all women. But I would go in and I would assume from 7:30 to 4:30 or 7:30 to 4 was my hours. I started out with 8 to 4:30, and then once school started and I was able to come in earlier, I did. So I was expecting to be nose to the grindstone the whole time, right? I discovered as a part of that job, and I used this when I was doing virtual assistants, that in an 8-hour day, your average worker only works about 5 hours. Think about it. There's time in the water cooler. There's time in the bathroom. There's time spent just chatting with colleagues. There's useless meetings, pointless meetings. There's lunch breaks, and we had cigarette breaks, and I did smoke a little bit at the time. I very quickly gave that up. I don't like tasting like an ashtray. There was breaks for all kinds of things, and so I would actually get about 5 hours of solid work in, and I like deep work. I like to get in the flow and be able to just crank. I also found out that some women are very catty, and if my best friend from that time period is watching this, she's going to remember this incident. Our team got called in. There were 5 Medicare clerks, so we got called in to talk to the director and talk about how well we were doing. Well, I happen to, my brain is always on high. I'm either going really fast or I'm asleep. I'm a little bit ADHD. My youngest sister probably says I'm a whole lot of ADHD, but I have no idea. And I think fast. I read fast. I tend to talk fast. Um, I just do things quickly. And that's kind of the way I've always been. I don't know any other way to be. I make snap judgments, and sometimes they're wrong. But we got called in, and I was the only one that actually had accounts receivable down to the goal that was outlined for us. I'm going to move this. It's bothering me. It's just a can of air. So I was cleaning out my printer, but it's kind of bothering me to see it in the background. So, you know, she congratulated me in front of the team that I was doing so well and working so fast. And we were really kind of overwhelmed, and had been for a while. We probably needed another 2 or 3 people on that team. And but I was kind of doing 2 people's work. And that's, again, that's just how I am. If I don't learn it the first time, you know, I want to go fast. I have all of the patience of a 3-year-old on crack, as my daughter says. So anyway, she complimented me on how much I had gotten done in front of the other girls. And then the part that I didn't like was that she reprimanded them for not matching my speed. Well, not everybody can. I will tell anybody, I can do 60 hours of work in a 40-hour work week if I'm left alone. And most people can't do that. Most people don't even want to do that. So we get back to the desk. And again, it's a bullpen. It wasn't even cubicles. It was just an open space with desks in it. And the girl that sat behind me called me and basically started reaming me for excelling. So I have always been much happier working from home. I've lost multiple jobs, not because I'm not doing the job well, but because I'm doing it so well, I threaten everyone around me. I don't care. Remember yesterday I talked about competition. I want to be the best. I want to be the best. I want everyone around me to bring on their game, and I want to be better than them. Whoever the best in the office is, I want to be better. And whatever metric you use, I will take that metric and I will improve on it. And it's not to put anyone else down, because if they get better, I want to get better in response. I don't want to kneecap them. It's one of the things that always got me about the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding story was, why would you want to kneecap your competition? Why wouldn't you want them to bring their best game and then beat the heck out of them? You know? But that's just kind of the way I am. I always want to be the best. And I want everyone around me to also be the best. I just want to be better than them. So I have actually lost multiple jobs because somebody felt threatened because I do such a good job. And I've had people tell me that. So here is this gal on the phone, like, and I'm holding up the phone and answering her by name. So in this office full of 20 to 25 women, everybody knows that she's angry with me because I did a good job. Or at least I worked quickly. And I said, you know, Katie, honey, you are more methodical than I am. There's nothing wrong with that. If you pull receipts and double check things, that actually makes you better at the job than I am, because I just crank. And just, you know, nothing I said was going to make her happy. And now I think, if there's not this idea that everybody has to be mediocre, and if everybody wants to be the best, and everybody wants to be, if everyone kind of had that mindset of, I want to be the best, and if someone else is better, then I'm going to work even harder to be better than them, then you end up with a wonderful workplace. But most of my schooling and corporate experience has actually been to, you know, be average. Everybody wants everyone to be average. Nobody really likes having someone who excels around. So, but if I work at home, I can just quietly do my best, and keep it between me and my client, or between me and my if I have a boss, between me and my boss. Nobody really needs to know. And that really reduces the, if you are like me, again, I'm highly competitive, but I hopefully in a good way. So if you're like me and you like to do things quickly, and you like to quickly get through and do it right, but do it fast, then there's no one to measure themselves against you, and there's no one to call you on the phone and say, well, I want you to slow down to make the rest of us look good. Donna, if you remember this, would you comment on it? Because I don't want anyone to think I'm making this up. And I know you remember it because you were right in front of me. One of my very dearest friends has the same first name that I do, and it's not a very common name anymore. So there's that. And for me, removing the distractions, removing the water cooler, removing the people that actually want me to be mediocre so that they can look good, that's the negative kind of competition, is actually improved my game. I am back to being able to accomplish about 60 hours worth of work in about 40 hours a week. And I like it that way. Also, if I work from home, I don't have to worry about bothering anyone with my music. I tend to play some to classical movie soundtracks, anything that will, atmospheric rock, anything that will kind of quiet my mind so that I can find the flow. And if I am not at an office, I don't have to worry about seeming to be standoffish, because I do frequently use earbuds, even when I'm here alone. I will use earbuds to listen to the music because it tunes out any outside noise. And I found that if I am in an office with other people, then they assume that I'm being standoffish or stuck up, when that's not the case at all. I'm just trying to focus on getting my job done. So that's some of the benefits. Now, if I want to be around people, if I feel like I need to be around people, then I have multiple options. One of them is simply to go to a Starbucks or something similar and sit quietly and work. And sometimes it's just nice to have a change of location. There's been times when I've just kind of packed up my laptop and gone into the office. The only downside, and I mean the only downside I have found of working remotely, is the lack of interaction. And in a lot of ways, I look at that more as a pro than a con. If the human interaction is a bit limited, then I find it easier to focus on what I'm doing. If you are someone who needs a little bit more interaction or more socialization, there's a lot of ways to do that. Again, remote work really isn't for everyone, but I do think we are looking at a world in which where you live is going to have almost no bearing on your job. And what a wonderful thing it would be if I decided that I wanted to work for a major accounting firm that happened to be located on the East Coast, but I don't want to move to the East Coast. It's a lovely place to visit. I enjoy going there, but I don't think I'd want to live there. I don't think I'd want to live anywhere north of Virginia, actually. But the fact, since everything is done remotely, everything is done on the cloud or on the web and over the phone, and all of our cell phones have whatever area code happened to be available when we got the phone. even if I move back to Kentucky, my phone will still have an 801 area code because that's where I've lived for a long time. I'm so sorry. Almost well. Almost well. I'm working out next week. So, the only downside to remote work that I've found has been you're a little bit isolated. I've also found that there's a lot of ways to overcome that. I have had bookkeepers who have worked with me who needed a little bit more interaction, and I didn't like it because bookkeeping and accounting is really kind of a one-person job. A lot of what I do is kind of a one-person job. It's kind of hard to delegate parts of it, unless you have someone that's really good at that, or if it's online. And it happened that we were working on QuickBooks files that were hosted locally here at my computer, and it was kind of difficult. We had a client that had years of messed up books, and so we were trying to figure it out and trying to specify what he had done wrong. He hadn't had an accountant or a bookkeeper do it. That was what he did wrong. And so we were trying to somehow fix what he had done. And it was kind of a nightmare. It took two of us to do it. And I only had a license for one seat in QuickBooks. So we were just collaborating, trying to get it straightened out. And I finally told her, let's just go to lunch. We can sit and work. We can get this figured out. And then we can, we'll be a little bit more refreshed to go home. And that worked really well. She also liked to do things like have Skype open and have me just on Skype, just kind of like this, but I would just be working and she would just be working, and then she could just look at it and go, oh, hey, Donna, I have a question. And it was no big deal. So again, it wasn't my favorite thing to do because our schedules were exactly backwards. She'd get up at 4:30 in the morning and do this, and I would be still sleeping. But I really think that's the direction of the future. And I think that the problem has not been the technology for a very long time. I saw the potential in the technology more years ago than I really care to count. I was 10. I went into a Radio Shack with my dad. No, I think it was just after school. I don't think I was even with my dad. Dad introduced me to the concept of the personal computer when I was in kindergarten. We would go to Radio Shack, and this was back when they had tape-driven drives, programs. And I got really interested in ELISA, one of the very first programs for the Commodore. And I really got interested. So I learned it. I was like 5 or 6. And I learned it, and I would start, showing Dad, okay, so you're going to answer this. And, okay, now that we're done, we're going to push this to save. And I mean, this was when the computer was like 10 grand, and Dad was constantly worried that I was going to break it or do something to it. And the guys at Radio Shack were just thrilled that here's this little girl would come in and just be like, I want to play with the computers. Well, one day I go in, and I was in junior high by then, and I go in, and they have this cool device, had 2 round pieces on the top, and they said, look, you put your phone on top of this, and your computer can call another computer. And I said, wait, my mom works at home. We had a pest control business in Seattle, and my mom ran it from our home office. And I was like, I want to go into computer programming so that I can work from home and send my work in over the computer, over the phone lines. And that was in the late 70s, kind of giving my age away. And I've had that vision ever since, that I would not have to go into an office, that I would be able to do things like be home with my kids and still pursue a career. And so I was frustrated, even in the 90s, that I was still constrained. And by the 90s, the internet was around, and we were still constrained by location. I spent the early 90s in Germany which was challenging enough. You know, I didn't speak German. I kind of learned it while I was there. I walked around with a phrase book, and I would just kind of go, "It's by Fahrkarte bitte. Is that what that says?" And they would kind of take pity on me because I am of German extraction, and they would just be, "Oh, you speak German. It's so cute." So it was bad enough, and European TV is on a different format than American TV, so I couldn't watch their TV. They have a PAL format. We have an NTSC. I couldn't watch their TV. I couldn't, the Olympics were there in, I want to say they were in Spain that year. Couldn't watch the Olympics because my TV didn't, it wasn't formatted for PAL, it was NTSC. We had to have transformers at every power plug because ours were 110 and alternating current, theirs for 220 alternating current, and so we had to have something to step it down, or we had to buy all new appliances. So, I mean, it was already challenging. We have everything was different, everything. And if I had had the internet at that time, it would have been so much easier on me to be able to communicate with my parents. I mean, I had a phone, and it would count up how much we were still using the Deutschmark at the time, and it would count up, you know, how many pfennigs this was going to cost. And so I would just kind of go, "Okay, Mom, you got 10 marks here." Talk fast. You know, but I kind of laugh now with everyone saying, "Well, I emailed my soldier, I emailed my family that's across on the other side of the world," and I would just kind of chuckle and go, "Wow, when I was married to a soldier, we didn't get to email." But the technology was there in the 90s. The technology was there in after the turn of the century. By the end of the 90s, I was here in Utah. I was, of course, we were still using dial-up, which was fine, but I was doing all of my work on the computer. I was going to school for my computer science degree, and I would just do it on the computer, put it on a disk drive, and take it to my professor. So I didn't need to physically be here as much. Now I'm going to school, and school is entirely online, which I love. They have some hardware they're going to be sending me, a special webcam that I'll be using for tests so that they can be proctored without me having to go to a testing center. Now, what does that mean for society? That's kind of a huge thing. A lot of people are more concerned about what it means for society than what it means for them personally. I'm not one of those people, but it just happens to benefit society. Here in Salt Lake City, especially here in Pleasant Grove, which is the town I live in, our roads are wearing out, and I know that it's a national problem. So if we can reduce the amount of traffic on the roads, because people will be working from home, then it's a benefit to everyone. It helps. Salt Lake and Utah counties were just kind of situated in a big bowl, and very frequently in the wintertime especially, we get what's called an inversion, which is where the warm air is higher up than the cold air, and all the pollution is in the lower layer, and so the warm air kind of comes in and traps it in the valley. And the cold air has no chance of blowing out till a storm comes in. And it can get pretty nasty. I mean, I've never had to chew my ear before. And January in Utah is one of those times when not only is it dark, it's almost palpably dark because of the inversion. And it doesn't matter. I think about how bad it had to have been when they burned coal for heat. I don't think it makes a big difference if someone's got a grill going. I don't think it makes a big difference if they've got a few cars on the road. More or less, really doesn't make that big of a difference. But they do like for us to drive less during the inversions, and it's nice not to have to go out in it. But as far as society is concerned, now again, I wouldn't want this legislated. I'm not a big fan of legislating a whole lot. I like minimal regulations. But when you don't have to leave the house to go to work, it reduces your stress. It reduces wear and tear on the roads. It reduces wear and tear on your car. It reduces emissions. It actually drives down the price of office rent for places that actually do need to have office space or choose to have office space. If there's not as much of a demand for it, the prices will be driven down. There's a ton of benefits to it. Now, like I said, the only downside I have ever had or ever found is if there's someone who does not know how to manage remote workers, and it should be actually fairly easy, it's no different than managing on-site workers, then they don't know how to measure, if they don't know how to measure productivity, then they don't know that these people are doing a good job. I do know that, what was her name? CEO of Yahoo. Marissa Mayer. Yahoo was allowing a lot of people to work remotely, and she came in and just said absolutely not, and not anymore. And and she still defends it. That's what kind of kills me. I guess some people felt like because they couldn't see their colleagues, that the colleagues weren't working. Well, that is ridiculous. I mean, when I'm working from home, if I work 8 hours, I'm really working 8 hours. If I'm working in the office, if I work 8 hours, probably I've worked 5 of that. So I do get more done in less time. Then I don't have the stress from the commute. I just have a lot less stress in general. So I think tomorrow, I will link to these TED Talks in the comments on both Facebook and YouTube. And tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about how to convince people to let you work from home. In my case, I'm an independent contractor, so it really was, let me work from home, period. Or I will just leave. And that has worked. But I do explain that I get more done when I don't have to deal with office politics. So, but we will discuss that a little bit more tomorrow. This has already gone on long enough. So I will look forward to talking to you then. Have a great